Welcome to Minds That Moves the World, the CIOThink Magazine podcast, where we sit down with the rare few who don't just study change, they create it. Today's guest not need the introduction. For more than 5 decades, Professor Richard Larson has demonstrated that some of society's most complex challenges, from urban system and public services to education and human behavior, can be understood and improved through rigorous thinking and practical innovation. Known to many as Dr. Q, he transformed the everyday experience of waiting in line into field of scientific inquiry. Long before online learning became a commonplace, he championed technology-enabled education along the way. He has mentored generation of students and research who now influence the industry, institution, and community around the world. Professor Larson, it is genuinely privileged to welcome you to the show.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I don't know if I can live up to that generous introduction. That was very, very nice of you, and I'm honored. I'm honored to be invited to be on this podcast.
Yeah. Well, let's dig into the first question. Throughout your career, you have witnessed the real world, problem and pattern always. When did you first realize that system thinking would become your life's work?
Well, even in high school and grade school, physics was my favorite subject, and I did very well in physics. And I think I got a perfect score in the SAT physics test to get into MIT. But then I realized I didn't want to become a physicist. I didn't like being a physicist, but I wanted to apply physicist reasoning to the world around us. And I discovered operations research, which is research on operations. And I view operations research as an example of the physics of the everyday world in which we live. And as soon as I discovered that in my early 20s, I fell in love with that topic, and I've been working in that topic ever since.
Well, the next question. You have found a remarkable nickname, Dr. Q. Beyond the mathematics, what does string theory reveal about the human nature that most people never notice?
Yeah, you're right. My nickname is Dr. Q. And when I started looking at queuing, by the way, queuing started a long time ago, like in 1919 in Denmark, when central telephone switches were first invented and implemented. They required a queuing theory to figure out the trade-off between the number of incoming lines and the number of human operators to connect all the lines. And A.K. Erlang from Denmark created queuing theory mathematically, rigorously, and his equations, Erlang's equations, are still the ones most used today. But what I found out when I started studying queuing theory in practice is the psychology of queuing is just as important, if not more important, than the length of time you're waiting. So the psychology of queuing is also extremely important when looking at the waiting lines.
Yeah. Well, you are spending more than 5 decades at MIT. It's extraordinary. What has the MIT given you that no other place in the world could have?
Well, I like to call it an apolitical meritocracy, a meritocracy where politics doesn't play any role. You can be whatever politician, you can be a member of whatever political party you want, or not a member of a political party, but merit is what MIT honors and distinguishes, and so that their point of view, and also they're very flexible. So in the half a century I've been at MIT, I started at age 18 as a freshman and never really have left. My interests have changed. So I started in electrical engineering, then I spent some time in urban studies and planning, and then civil and environmental engineering, blah, 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 blah. I ended up in a new interdepartmental center, IDSS, Institute for Data Systems and Society. And that's really been my interest the last 30 years, data, systems, and society.
Yeah. Well, the next question, along with the innovation and future of learning. Long before online learning became a mainstream, you have already investing in it. What future where you're seeing that convince your education would eventually move beyond the classroom's walls?
Well, that's an excellent question that I have a very personal answer to this. Uh, my
Yeah,
wife and soulmate of 43 years, she's now deceased, Mary Elizabeth Murray. She and I became intellectual partners as well as husband and wife. And we were going to, we were invited to China to learn about education in China, particularly in high schools, and particularly in math and science. And they brought us to schools in Hong Kong, they brought us to schools in Beijing. And we said, could you drive us to a very poor rural school somewhere out in the northern part of China? We'd like to see how they use technology to teach math and science. And so they did that, and they brought us to a very poor school. And we went into the classroom, and we noticed the teacher was using videotapes of lectures from Hong Kong and Beijing, and then stopping the videotapes every once in a while to interact with the class. And on the flight back to Hong Kong, my wife Elizabeth and I, in a conversation, we co-invented what eventually was called MIT Blossoms. Blossoms, BLOSSOMS, Blended Learning Open Source Science and Math Studies. And basically, we designed math and science high school level and college level courses that the lectures would be interrupted. And that was part of the pedagogical design. And over the years, Blossoms has created 86 different modules that are now up on YouTube and are used worldwide on a daily basis.
yeah, that's great. Well, move to the next question. AI can now tutor, grade, and personalize the learning at scale. Does that excite you, worry you, or perhaps the both?
I'm not a I'm not in love with AI. I'm in
Yeah,
love with HI, human intelligence, not
yeah,
artificial intelligence. And I worry about the time that AI becomes self-aware and its own self-preservation is more important than the preservation of humanity. That would be bad. Also, if you give AI too much credit on another word, uh, worry, like, when intercontinental ballistic missiles will go off against an enemy, AI could make a mistake without any human oversight. AI could start World War III, and that would be a disaster of the first magnitude. So, uh, I mean, AI has its role, and if you realize the limited role that it can play, it's very powerful. But you don't think about that it's a cure all for everything, and it can answer all questions and make particularly policy decisions.
yeah. We not required the war three. Well, move to the next question. You spent your career building the bridge between the disciplines. Why do great universities still stand the create the walls between them?
Well, that's a good question, and you should ask a president or a provost at a university, including MIT. But my impression, being in the university now for half a century, is that it's basically territorial power and relating to budget potential and authority. And it's a non-optimal system in terms of if you're interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, this is not the best system. But I think it's basically territorial and budget focused.
Okay. Well, the next question is MIT has been the center of the world's most important technological breakthrough. Looking ahead, 20 years, what challenges do you believe humanity is still dramatically underestimating?
Excellent question. Maybe your best question. First of all, most of the world is experiencing right now, at least the developed world, rapidly decreasing population growth,
Yeah,
and that can create decreasing population. You might say, who's going to take care of us old guys if there are no more young people to work and help us out? But the balance. We talked about AI, so I won't talk about that anymore. But also changes in planet Earth itself would be could be a major issue. I'm living here in Lexington, Massachusetts, and here in Lexington, Massachusetts, which is far from the North Pole, which has ice all the time, we have huge boulders in parks and other places that were pushed south by the last ice age. In the last ice age, in this area of the U.S., terminated here in what we now call Lexington, Massachusetts. And then the ice age went back, the ice retreated back, but the boulders are still here as proof of the ice age existence. The ice age had nothing to do with global warming caused by humans. The planet Earth has evolved, and it's a very special, only partially understood physics and biology. And so one could think about, what's going to happen in the future in planet Earth. Did you know that once the number of daylight hours of a day, the length of a day was not 24 hours. Way back in the millennia, the length of a day was 8 hours, not 24 hours. And the thing that has slowed down the rotation of the Earth is the moon and the tides in the oceans.
Yeah.
So the moon has a gravity, and then and that gravitational force is a contra force in the ocean tides, and that has been slowing over time the rotation of planet Earth.
Yeah. Well, we'll move to the next topic: people, purpose, and what matter most. The question 8 is: looking back across the student and researcher, you have mentors. What separately those who merely become successful from those who genuinely change a field?
Well, I encourage them, first of all, find out what your intellectual passions are, and then pursue them with limitless energy, total commitment, and willing to take risks, and also willing to go down dead ends and reach a place that you have to turn around, go back, and redefine things and start some of the process over. So take risks, have lots of energy, have lots of passion for it.
Okay. As per you, what is the important for the life, passion or happiness? It is out of the, yeah, both is important in career.
What has changed? What has been the same in the earliest days? Well, an educator, and I'm still an old-fashioned blackboard guy. There's no substitute for getting up in front of 50 or 100 students or 200 students in a large lecture hall with a blackboard, and showing your passion for things while you're talking and writing on the blackboard. So the thing is, such an educator has to know the material backwards and forwards, and be able to answer questions from struggling students, not the A+ students who will get everything easily, but the B- students who are struggling to understand. And those are the hardest students to communicate with, because the teacher has to think of very intuitive and naturally evolving ways of explaining this. And it happened to me when I was what happened to our story? Are you there? We disconnected. Are you there?
Yeah. So apologies.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, connection
So,
is
so
gone.
to be continued. This
Yes,
happened to me
yes.
when I was a graduate teaching assistant. A B- student in the class, a large lecture hall, said, "Professor Larson, I understand I wasn't professor then. Mr. Larson, I understand the equation you wrote on the blackboard, but and I believe it's correct, but I don't understand it intuitively. Can you explain it to me intuitively?" And on that day, I couldn't. I didn't know how to do that, and that moment is an embarrassment moment that I remember every day of my life. And I've decided never again to go up before a classroom until I knew the material so thoroughly that I could explain it intuitively to any student who asks.
Yeah, the next question is you often spoken about your loves for dogs beyond the companionship. What has a dog taught you that a lifetime in the academic simple could not?
Well, I have my dog right next to
Yeah,
me on the
we know that.
table on the floor. Huh?
We know that he loves the dogs a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah. So I love dogs. Dogs give unconditional love. And
Yeah,
our current one, Maisie, is a golden retriever, and we've had six over the last 30 years. We've had six different golden retrievers. They give unconditional love. Unfortunately, this one only has three legs, not four. Three legs because she got bone cancer in the right front leg and had to have that leg amputated. But she still has a good humor and a good sense about her and gives lots of love.
yeah. Well, the last question of the podcast is decades from now, when your students reflect on the influence you had on their lives, what do you hope they remember most?
Well, I urge them to identify and follow their intellectual passions and do that with all the energy you can muster. And if you start down a road and you don't have the energy for it because you change your mind about how important it was to you, go back, start a new road, identify a new passion, and find a thing that excites you that you think you might even commit your whole life to, your whole professional life to. If you can find something like that, when you're in your 20s or maybe even in your 30s,
Yeah,
you're set for life. And luckily, I did that with operations research. Operations research, not theoretically, not theorem proof, but applying it to real problems. I even started a company. We had 40 people working at the company full time, applying operations research, particularly to urban systems like New York City, St. Louis, Missouri, Washington, D.C., Boston, Massachusetts. And uh, so that turned out to be my passion. And so, because I like to interact with the real world as well as the academic world.
yeah. Well, the closing the podcast, can you please share more about your books and learnings for our audience? We're happy
Yeah,
to.
I'd like to
Yeah,
advertise my book,
yeah,
Model Thinking for Everyday Life,
yeah.
available on Amazon.
Yeah, we also add that link on the podcast. Also, uh, Dr. Q, what a privilege this conversation has been. Throughout your remarkable career, you have spent lifetime making invisible visible, uncovering hidden pattern in the everyday system, expanding access to education and helping generation of students learn how to think more deeply about the world around them. To everyone listening, today's conversation is reminder that meaningful progress often being the curiosity, the willingness to ask better question challenges assumption and seen the possibilities where others sees complexity. Has been minds that moves the world. CIOThink Magazine. Thank you so much, Dr. Q. Your valuable time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
It was a
you.
pleasure, and I'm honored to have this interview. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a wonderful day.